Today I will tell you a story that took place in Florida. On February 15th, 2010, 46-year-old Kelly Brennan did not show up for work at Holmes Regional Medical Center in Melbourne, where she worked as a nurse. This was very unusual for her, so people quickly became concerned. It turned out they were right to be. However, no one expected what would happen next. Kelly's body was found on Tuesday, February 16th, 2010, less than 24 hours after she vanished from her home in Escalating. Her remains were discovered in the 6,000 block of State Road A1A, south of Melbourne Beach, at a location known as Mark's Landing. She was found near a beach crossover, hidden in palmetto scrub and bushes. The body was positioned at a 45-degree angle in the vegetation, where it was not easily visible from the beach or the road. Investigators found blood transfer on a nearby post, indicating she had been dragged or carried from a vehicle into the brush. Kelly was happy. She was starting a new life. After 7 years of marriage, she was divorcing her husband. A new man had also entered her life, and she was planning a future with him. Kelly was born on September 5th, 1964 in New Jersey. She had 4 sisters and was considered a very beautiful woman. While specific details about her childhood are limited, her early adult life in Florida was shaped by her education and strong local ties. In the early 1990s, Kelly attended nursing school in Florida. At that time, she met and became acquainted with Sheila Trott. They were not particularly close friends, but they would see each other from time to time. Despite their long history, Sheila later described their relationship as one where they might not see each other for several years, only to reconnect again through local events or shared social circles. Kelly's classmates remembered her as a beautiful and compassionate student who was always willing to help others. After graduating, she became a highly skilled recovery room nurse at Holmes Regional Medical Center. She was well respected by her colleagues and worked as a preceptor, mentoring new nursing students. From a young age, Kelly was known for her active lifestyle and her dedication to helping others. She founded Kelly's Heroes, a cycling group that raised money for multiple sclerosis. Unfortunately, Kelly also suffered from this illness, but she tried not to let it define her. She volunteered her nursing skills internationally, including a mission to Morocco with ISMS Operation Kids, where she helped provide surgical care to more than 60 children. She was an avid kayaker and cyclist, described as someone with an unmatched joy for life and a strong love for the outdoors. Kelly's new partner was Daniel Trott, the former mayor of Escalating. Daniel was also in the process of divorcing his wife Sheila, whom he had been with for 20 years. If that surname sounds familiar, you are right. Sheila was Kelly's longtime acquaintance. Kelly and Dan began dating in late 2009 or early 2010. Dan had been asked to leave his home by his wife more than a year before he started seeing Kelly. The two met through a local cycling group, although Sheila claimed that she had introduced them. At the time, Kelly was still legally married to and living with her husband, Gino Rallo. Although they were in the process of divorcing, they continued to share a home in Escalating. Gino later said he was heartbroken by the end of their 7-year marriage and had hoped they might reconcile. He discovered the relationship after several months. He later confronted Kelly and Dan at Dan's flat, where he reportedly attacked Dan. Sheila had been born in Percy, Illinois, and was raised in Richlands, North Carolina. Her mother, Margaret Byers, recalled that Sheila spent her summers swimming in Georgian Bay, which she considered her favorite place in the world. She had moved to Brevard County to study oceanography and also held a degree in English from Mount Olive University. Since the 9th grade, she had been a vegetarian, a decision she made after her school bus stop was located near a slaughterhouse. She had also been a published poet in her youth. Sheila married Daniel Trott on August 26, 1989. Friends said she had been completely in love during their early years together. At the beginning of their marriage, she worked 3 jobs, including nights and weekends in restaurants, to support Dan while he attended flight school. The couple had 2 sons, Creighton and Graham. Over time, Sheila became a real estate agent, while Dan became an airline pilot and later the mayor of Escalating. In their small community, They were seen as a successful couple for many years. However, their marriage began to fall apart around 2009. Sheila claimed the relationship broke down because Dan had multiple affairs. She said she noticed him leaving his wedding ring on the counter and alleged that he became verbally aggressive when she confronted him. By January 2009, Sheila had reached her limit and asked for a divorce, saying simply, "I'm done." Dan moved out of the family home in March 2009. While they were separated, he began a relationship with Kelly Brennan. During his time as mayor between 2007 and 2009, Dan was often in conflict with the town council, particularly with Dave Berkman. Their relationship was marked by public arguments, heated debates over local policies, and mutual accusations of unprofessional behavior. There were even reports that Dan physically attacked Dave. The pressure from politics, combined with the breakdown of his personal life, eventually led Daniel Trott to resign as mayor in late 2009, just months before Kelly Brennan was killed. Sheila's descriptions of Kelly Brennan were often contradictory, shifting between a distant friendship and clear resentment depending on the situation. She said, for example, that Kelly always wanted to be the center of attention. Kelly had married Gino Rallo, who worked as a restaurant manager, and became a stepmother to his 3 children. Sheila Graham Trott later claimed that she had actually set up Kelly with her estranged husband. She described Kelly as her ticket out of a bad marriage, suggesting she had no hard feelings about their relationship. Sheila said that during a dinner with Kelly, she told her that she would be the perfect partner for her husband, Daniel Trott. According to her, Kelly seemed pleased. Sheila then added that she would need to lose some weight. As Sheila herself was very slim, the comment was clearly meant to be unpleasant. This entire version of events, that Sheila wanted Kelly to be with her husband and free her from the marriage, was fabricated. Sheila herself changed this story more than once. In reality, Dan and Kelly met through a cycling group created by Kelly. In addition, Sheila had already been in the process of divorcing her husband before he became involved with Kelly. She did not need Kelly to free her from Dan. Dan himself wanted the divorce and was not making it difficult for her. Their marriage had existed only on paper for some time, and he had no intention of causing problems. After meeting Kelly, he had largely moved on from his wife and wanted to start a new life. However, Kelly's husband, Gino, was devastated. Information about the relationship came directly to him, from Sheila. Gino later said that Sheila called him frequently to share details about the affair. At first he did not believe her, but her persistence eventually made him look into it. He described her as a master manipulator who used these conversations to provoke and upset him. It was after receiving information from Sheila that Gino found Dan and Kelly together at a flat, which led him to break down the door and attack Dan with a carjack. It is likely that Sheila's constant updates to Gino were part of an attempt to create conflict for Dan and Kelly, possibly to separate them or trigger a violent reaction. Dan later said that after this confrontation, Kelly followed Gino home, where he attacked her in the garage, choking her during what he described as a violent encounter. The argument took place when Kelly told Gino that she was leaving the house for good. Gino said they wrestled in the garage during this discussion. After this incident, Kelly decided to move in temporarily with her friend Stephanie. On January 14, 2010, Kelly's stepfather died at around 80 years old. Just a month later, her mother would face something far worse: the loss of her daughter. At 7:48 p.m., Kelly made her last known phone call. At 8:15 p.m., she was due to leave her home for a gym session with a personal trainer and Dan Trott. By 9 p.m., she had still not arrived. Friends and Dan tried to reach her by phone, but without success. Stephanie learned that Kelly had not made it to the gym, despite planning to go. Her close friend Jane became so concerned that she contacted the police to report her missing. Kelly had left the house, and her car was also gone. At the same time, Sheila was at home with her sons and her son's girlfriend, Ariel Hill. Between 6 and 7 p.m., Sheila told them she was going to a Walmart supermarket. She returned home between 10 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. that evening. Her sons, Graham and Crichton, later said she had been gone for around 4 hours. CCTV confirmed that she had been at Walmart that evening. However, The footage only accounted for a small part of the time she was away. When she returned home, she was not carrying any shopping bags. Instead, she appeared shaken and was behaving erratically, which made her sons think she might be experiencing a medical emergency. Ariel Hill called emergency services. When paramedics arrived, they found nothing physically wrong, and Sheila refused to go to hospital. About an hour later, Ariel called again, saying that Sheila was having a seizure. Paramedics took her to a local hospital, but doctors found no evidence of a seizure and discharged her that same night. The following morning, Sheila called her son Graham into her bedroom. She said she had had a very disturbing dream and that she kept seeing Kelly's face in the darkness. She said she felt as though she might have hurt her and claimed she could see Kelly on the beach. Concerned by their mother's behaviour, Graham called his grandmother, Margaret Byers, repeatedly saying, "Margaret, we need you. We need you." When Margaret arrived at the family home in Indialantic, what she saw was unsettling. Sheila was lying on her bed, curled into a fetal position. Her body was shaking, and she seemed overwhelmed, incoherent, detached, and in visible distress, as though she were experiencing a serious breakdown. She kept repeating the same phrases. "Everything's black," she said, her voice strained. At the same time, she insisted that the only thing she could see was Kelly Brennan's face, as if the image was fixed in her mind and impossible to escape. As Margaret Byers tried to understand what she was seeing and comfort her daughter, the situation escalated. Graham, standing nearby, broke the silence with words that changed everything. "Margaret, I think Mum's killed Kelly." Margaret immediately called emergency services. The call began hesitantly, with her trying to remain calm despite the chaos around her. We just need a policeman, please," she said, her voice uncertain but urgent. When the operator asked what had happened, Margaret became more direct, although still shaken. "I think there's been a murder. My daughter has had a nervous breakdown, and she's saying she killed somebody." The operator asked who had been harmed. Margaret paused, struggling to make sense of it. "She's saying, I don't know, Kelly." Then she mentioned a key detail, the location her daughter had given. Mark's Landing. Sheila Graham Trott initially claimed she had experienced a vivid nightmare or vision in which she saw her friend Kelly Brennan surrounded by darkness. According to her sons, she said she woke with the feeling that Kelly had been hurt at a beach. She identified a specific isolated stretch along Highway A1A near Mark's Landing in Melbourne Beach. While her sons first recalled her saying, "I think I hurt Kelly," she later insisted that the dream was her only source of information. She also described seeing an image of Kelly arguing with someone, which she found disturbing. Police quickly connected the disappearance of a woman named Kelly with Sheila's unusual statements. Based on the information she had given to her sons and mother, officers were directed to Mark's Landing. The Brevard County Sheriff's Office deployed a helicopter to search the area. Chief Pilot Lieutenant John Coppola spotted Kelly's leg protruding from a cluster of saw palmettos near a beach crossover. After landing, he ran to the scene. Kelly was found in running clothes. She had suffered a brutal attack to the head. Investigators used blood transfer on a nearby post and a drag mark through the vegetation to reconstruct how the body had been moved from a vehicle into the brush. Her legs were spread, and her head was covered in blood from approximately 12 to 14 blunt force injuries. There was no sand on the soles of her shoes, and very little on the back of her legs, which suggested she had been killed elsewhere, likely in her yard, and then transported to the beach. Authorities believed the murder weapon was a hammer based on the nature of the injuries. Despite extensive searches, the weapon was never found. In a case like this, the husband would usually be the primary suspect. However, because Sheila had claimed to see Kelly, her death, and the location of her body in a vision, she quickly became the main suspect. Just 2 days later, Sheila was arrested. Her trial did not begin until September 2014, during which time she remained in custody. Her defense team, including attorneys Todd Deratani and Michael Pirillo, focused on raising reasonable doubt. They argued that Kelly's husband, Gino Rallo, was a more likely suspect, They pointed to his anger, his earlier confrontation with Daniel Trott, and the fact that he received a $250,000 life insurance payout after her death. However, Gino had a strong alibi. He was recorded on CCTV at a Walgreens in Indialantic around the time the murder is believed to have taken place. He also said he stopped at a video shop before returning home, where he spent the rest of the evening with his dogs. The defense argued there was still a gap in the timeline that could not be fully confirmed by footage alone. However, prosecutors maintained that the evidence cleared him of any direct involvement. They also pointed out that there was no DNA, fingerprints, or blood linking Sheila directly to the crime scene. A sample taken from Kelly's yard, believed to be the place of the attack, tested negative for blood. The defense further argued that Sheila was too physically small to move Kelly's body on her own, suggesting that more than one person would have been needed. They later requested a directed verdict of not guilty, claiming there was no proof of premeditation. The judge rejected this, noting that the severity of the injuries indicated intent. Throughout the case, Sheila maintained that everything she knew had come from a dream and that she had nothing to do with Kelly's death. In the end, it was her son's testimony that proved critical. They revealed something that had not been known before. After Sheila told them about Kelly's death, one of her sons asked if they should go to the beach to see whether Kelly was really there. Sheila agreed. She, her sons, and Ariel drove to the location. The boys, aged 16 and 18, later said that Kelly's body was indeed there, exactly where Sheila had claimed to have seen it in her visions. On the way back, Sheila directed them to a vacant lot near the Indialantic fire station. Her son, Graham, testified that she got out of the car, walked into the dark area, and returned carrying a green Publix bag. Inside were Kelly's handbag and driving license. The boys told their mother they wanted no involvement and went to bed, leaving her to deal with the situation herself. Creighton later said that Sheila took the bag with her, and it was never found. No one had initially thought to search that particular beach, as Kelly had never gone there. This testimony seriously undermined the defense's vision theory. Prosecutors argued that while someone might claim to have had a dream, it was impossible to see the exact location of hidden personal belongings unless they had placed them there. Although there was very little physical evidence, investigators did find a small trace of Kelly's DNA on the exterior passenger door handle of Sheila's car. Years later, while awaiting trial, Sheila changed her account. She claimed that the dream had actually been a repressed memory of witnessing a strange man attacking Kelly in her garden. While Sheila Graham Trott publicly claimed she had set up her husband with Kelly Brennan, prosecutors used her private messages to show that she was, in fact, bitter and resentful about the personal and financial impact of their relationship. Evidence presented during the 2014 trial revealed that Sheila's private views of Kelly were far more hostile than her public statements suggested. The prosecution introduced an email in which Sheila described Kelly as meddling in the divorce proceedings. In the same messages, she accused her of making things difficult for the family and being the source of all the problems they were facing. Investigators later argued that, in Sheila's mind, Kelly had become more than just another person. She was a threat to her sense of security, her marriage, and the stability of her family. According to prosecutors, this perception shaped a strong emotional motive. They claimed that Sheila saw Kelly as a symbol of what she was losing, and that her actions were driven by a desire to strike back. They argued that her motive was to destroy the person Daniel Trott loved, in order to hurt him as much as she felt hurt herself. The prosecution stated that this was not simply an impulsive act, but one rooted in resentment, betrayal, and a need to cause pain. They believed Sheila drove to Kelly Brennan's home on Cypress Avenue and waited in the darkness. When Kelly stepped outside at around 8:15 p.m. to leave for the gym, Sheila attacked her from behind, striking her repeatedly with a hammer. After the murder, Sheila drove Kelly's car approximately 13 miles to a beach access area near Mark's Landing in Melbourne Beach to dump the body. Prosecutors suggested she used her real estate profession to access a lockbox to a vacant property to clean up the vehicle afterward. The car was later abandoned on Cato Court. Sheila allegedly left the car and walked about half a mile back to her own car, which had been left at Kelly Brennan's home. After disposing of the body, she hid Kelly's handbag and identification in a vacant lot, intending to retrieve them later. Prosecutors argued that the vision story was a deliberate attempt to explain how she knew the exact location of both the body and the hidden items. They pointed to Kelly's DNA found on the passenger side door handle of Sheila's car, as well as mobile phone data that contradicted her claim of being at Walmart the entire evening. The testimony of her own sons, particularly their account of her saying, "I think I hurt Kelly," became a central part of the case. It was also proposed that she may have worn protective clothing, as witnesses later reported seeing a woman dressed in light-coloured clothing in the area. To explain the lack of blood on her clothes, the state argued she may have used protective gear, such as coveralls or a tarp, during the attack and while moving the body. It was suggested that she may have transferred DNA to the car door handle accidentally while wearing contaminated gloves. However, Sheila had not anticipated one thing, that she would struggle to cope mentally afterwards and fall into hysteria. Emails she sent to Dan were also used by prosecutors to challenge her public image of being supportive. Alongside angry messages, there were also emails in which she expressed a desire to save the marriage. She mocked Kelly's weight loss and active lifestyle, attempting to portray her as unstable or overly focused on her appearance. While in custody awaiting trial, Sheila changed her account. She claimed that her visions were actually repressed memories of witnessing a strange man kill Kelly. According to this version, she'd gone to Kelly's home that night to ask her to stop driving past her house. She said that when she arrived, she saw an unknown man arguing with Kelly in the yard. She claimed she heard Kelly say, "Enough," before the man struck her and dragged her into the grass, continuing the attack. She stated that instead of calling the police, she followed the man's car all the way to Mark's Landing and watched from a distance as he disposed of the body and belongings. When asked to describe him, she repeatedly said it had been too dark to see his face or any identifying features. Prosecutors dismissed this account as a calculated attempt to explain her knowledge of the crime scene and hidden evidence. They argued that her failure to help Kelly or contact authorities indicated awareness of guilt. Her defense team ultimately chose not to have her testify about this version during the trial. The verdict was delivered on September 16, 2014. The jury deliberated for just over 3 hours before finding Sheila guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. In Florida, such a conviction carries a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole when the death penalty is not pursued. As of 2026, Sheila remains imprisoned at the Lowell Annex in Ocala. Her appeals for a new trial, based on claims of ineffective legal counsel and her repressed memory argument, have been repeatedly denied. After the trial, both of her sons withdrew from public life. Their testimony was described as one of the most difficult things they had ever done, as they still cared for their mother, despite everything that had happened. Margaret Byers remained her strongest supporter, even though she was the one who made the emergency call. In interviews, she said it tears her up to know that her call led to her daughter's life sentence. She explained that she had believed Sheila was experiencing a medical crisis and needed help. Throughout the trial and appeals, Margaret continued to defend her, suggesting that something had gone seriously wrong and that her daughter was not a calculated killer, but someone who had suffered a breakdown. Kelly's family described her as a warm and lively person who was devoted to helping others. At the end of the trial, one relative said, "We miss our sister every day. She was a wonderful person, and we miss her." Following the verdict, the family said they felt justice had been served, although they described the case as a tragedy for both families. Instead of speaking in court, they chose to have their lawyer present photographs of Kelly from her life as a final tribute. Her work with Kelly's heroes and her determination while living with multiple sclerosis were remembered as lasting inspirations. Rest in peace, Kelly. Thank you for listening to this story until the end,